If you missed it over on Dog Posts, we had a What We Were Hearing on Thursday, and it was talking about Georgia and its recruiting efforts here as we hit that time of year. I mean, it's January. We'd be back in the day. We'd be coming right on top of signing day. There'd be what's going to happen next, but we exp- we blew all that energy up in December, getting ready for Christmas with the signing day. Just before that. But don't miss out on this report. I'm going to try and link it down below. It also talks, about conversations that we have with insiders, not just about recruiting, but of everything. And one person that I talked to, actually two, over the last couple of weeks, the discussion was about Texas coming into the SEC. The Horns are the only people coming back from the college football playoff of the four teams. They're the only one that's returning with their head coach. And, for Texas, this is a big year, uh, needless to say. And we're just going to see how this works out. I mean, it's going to be challenging, to be sure, to enter this league. Really, changing any league has been very difficult for everybody, okay? But for Texas, they're going to have to come into a league where, Georgia's already won two of the last three national championships. The team that won it before Georgia was Alabama. The team that won it before Alabama was LSU. They're all in the same league. And, Texas's schedule is not the end of the world, as I recall, but it's also not easy. I mean, they're playing the Dogs. It's going to ramp up in a very big way for Texas. And that's what, one person I talked to, two, again, I keep talking about, we'll go one by one here, but, I did want to run over Texas' schedule real quick. They play Oklahoma and Georgia in back-to-back. They should arrive in Dallas with not more than one loss, which would be at the worst to Michigan on the road, the second game of the season. They play Colorado State, Michigan, Texas, San Antonio, Louisiana Monroe, and then State before getting a week off before Oklahoma and Georgia in back-to-backs. That's going to be tough. And their close is not the easiest thing on earth either. They got the Gators. They're at Arkansas. They host Kentucky, and then they play A&M on the road. Two of their last three games are rivalry games. That is going to be super challenging for Texas. And that's what, in talking with folks, around the league or this is what one person said. They said Texas has to recruit guys from out of state. A lot of the guys in state are maxed out. Talking about players from Dallas, Houston, any metro area, those guys aren't raw. The football in Texas is very highly thought about, developed, everything. You don't get a lot of raw players coming out of Texas anyway. A lot of guys are maxed out. In order to beat SEC teams, you can't depend on that. Now that Texas is a conference, is a college football playoff team, they can compete. But they have to get guys from out of state to compete with Georgia and the rest of the SEC year in and year out. Another person adds, talking about Texas' roster, they're not going to be able to keep up with cats from South Georgia and Florida. That's a different thing. Texas has difference makers now, but talking about like guys like A.D. Mitchell, etc. Texas has difference makers now, but they have to get guys who can grow and are not totally formed by the time they dress out. That's been a criticism around the league and around just college football, is that a lot of guys, this is Charlie Strong talked about this back in the day, but he never won enough to kind of prove his point, which is he got a lot of guys from out of state, and he didn't succeed with them, but I think he thought that they were soft. That's just a word I shouldn't use, to be honest with you. It's just so overused and it's not based in reality, but not as tough as maybe they should be. But how will Texas survive what this future will be for them? That's going to be challenging. Georgia's never had to go to a new league. That's just not something they've literally never done that in the last 90 years or whatever it's been. Coming on 90 years. River's Edge table bar height from our buddies at Eco Poly. The link is down below. I have this table. It is awesome. I can stand on this table. I've done that in the past in videos. I might do that in the future. It's made of completely recycled plastics. You got a 20-year warranty on that from our friends in Middle Georgia. Check this, Middle Georgia, heart of Georgia. I don't want everybody getting. It's very sensitive. Middle Georgia. We say heart of Georgia for our buddies down there in Eastman in Dodge County, and we appreciate everything Ecopoly is doing with us and for us as we move forward with them going into the fall. That's an area that heart of Georgia where Georgia has been looking at. Georgia is really attacking the state this year in recruiting. Now, that's not always been the case because, as I've talked about for a long time, you you recruit kids where they are. So why do bank robbers rob banks? Because that's where the money is. So you go where the kids are. And in Georgia's case, the state is a great, foundation, but you're not getting Brock Bowers from Georgia. In this case, Aaron Murray, Carson Beck, guys like that. You're not, Matthew Stafford. There's a lot of guys. Georgia's a national program. But you can also get Amarius Mims, Tate Ratledge. Let me turn to the screen here. Gunnar Stockton, Warren Brinson, Nazir Stackhouse, Smile Monday, Chaz. There's a bunch of guys from Georgia. But if you can go get what you think are superstars in other places, Brock, Todd Gurley, Keith Marshall was certainly a 5-star prospect from out of state. You go get them. AJ, Aaron, whoever. You're not constrained or handcuffed to Georgia. You don't have to do that. So, but this cycle, and that's one of the things we're talking about and what we're hearing. This cycle is loaded up in the state. There are a lot of guys, that are a big deal in the state. And I think, whether you're talking about Mason Short, Julian Lewis, Juan Gasson Jr., Isaiah Gibson, Josh Petty, Zayden Walker from Schley County. Schley, I don't know how y'all pronounce it. So maybe someone can correct me. But that's a lot of guys. And in terms of offensive linemen, this is as good as Matt DeBerry has seen in his time covering. And my primary function is not recovering recruiting, but I don't remember any instance necessarily where in-state offensive line was this good. Now, there have been strings of guys that have been in state where you're talking about, Jamari, Broderick. There have been guys. There's been multiple guys from the state who are offensive linemen that have gone in the first round of the NFL draft. Okay, so that's been there. Georgia hadn't always signed those guys, but in this case, Georgia could be getting multiple guys who got a crack at that. And then go back to the whole thing. Cedric Van Pran is a near 50-game starter at Georgia. He's from New Orleans. Like, it's not like you got it. So you can go wherever. I'm just saying that my only point is that, and Xavier's, and Xavier Trust. I'm sorry. I meant to say, oh my gosh, I'm going blank on a first-round draft pick for Georgia. Yeah. Marius Mims. I'm sorry, y'all. That's my fault. Marius Mims and Van Pran both certainly should not be there after the 100th pick. But we'll see. Centers are tough. Amarius will be, a top 50 pick for sure. But my point is, when you got Broderick, Amarius, you go Andrew Thomas. There's been a lot of guys. They've not all been in the same class. Are these guys first round draft picks? Multiple? I don't know about that, but it's really good. And this offensive line group that they just signed is spectacular. but they're not all from Georgia, obviously. And you shouldn't care. What difference does it make? It was really neat that Stetson Bennett grew up a Georgia fan. You could see the picture with his father and his family going to games and all that stuff. That's really neat. Stetson is beyond the outlier in many different ways. So, Aaron Murray, you would never be like, oh well, I'd rather have the guy from Georgia. The guy from Georgia with Aaron's class, I actually don't know who that would have been. It would not have been Cam Newton, but that's you want the best possible player. Now, the one thing that's happening, and I'll stop talking. There are better quarterbacks in Georgia now than there were certainly 20 years ago when Matthews signed. But that's because more and more teams are throwing in Georgia. We didn't have that for a long time. It wasn't very advanced here. You saw a lot of people play like Tucker, where I went to high school, the way that they were, handing the ball off, and that was a lot of success for them. But now more and more, when you look around the state from, Trevor, Deshaun, Justin, Jake Fromm, Stetson, Gunner, there's been a lot of success with players from the states. The state's getting better and better at quarterbacks. It wasn't great in the 90s and the early 2000s. It wasn't. No hate to Mike Bobo. I feel like I'm killing Mike. Mike was an exceptional quarterback in high school. He was a good college quarterback. He wasn't those guys. And so everything's changed a little bit. But I think the high school coaching has continue to get better in Georgia, and they're not scared to throw it. They are not scared to throw it anymore. And so with that comes protection from the offensive line. Get more athletic offensive linemen, guys who can play a little bit of basketball, or can go out there and dance or whatever. Offensive linemen are not always like. If you got a guy who can do both those things, you got an offensive lineman. That's what probably Georgia's really looking for out there. But this is going to be a really good class if they can get who they want. Now we're going to see if that happens, but it's out there for them, and it may well be that a lot of these guys are in state. Not all offensive linemen, but those are the guys I mentioned. Sorry about that.